take me a moment. So we are officially open for business, Denise. And I'm going to go get our Facebook Live rolling.
Great.
And it'll just take a second. And Kelly, as people start joining us, please ask them to share where they're joining from and a gratitude if they'd like to share gratitude today. And the Facebook Lives always take just a bit of time.
Yeah.
Because everything has to, all these programs have to open up. But how amazing that we
have this technology to use.
We have this technology, absolutely.
It is amazing.
We're so lucky to be able to stay this connected in this challenging time.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to connect with family, you know, I talk to my mother every day, but to be able to see her and see that she's doing all right,
mm-hmm.
You know, it's terrific.
I have to FaceTime my grandkids, which I love to do, but
absolutely.
It doesn't help with the hugs. Need those hugs.
No, it doesn't replace any of that. That's for sure. But it is nice to just, you know, my mother has not been listening well to the quarantine orders. So, being able to talk to her face to face has been helpful.
Yeah.
All right, and welcome everyone as you're coming in. Please do share with us where you're calling from and a gratitude today if you feel so inclined. I'm getting the Facebook Live going and we are about to begin.
Great.
All right. And we're on, everyone. So thank you so much for joining us, everyone who's joining. I'm Christy Kirk, and you have tuned in to the Daily Connection with Weaving Influence. This is something we've been doing. This is actually the start of our 4th week, which is hard to believe, of the Daily Connection. And it's bringing everyone some leadership, life, learnings, inspiration, comfort during these crazy times. And I'm so grateful today to be joined by Danise DiStasi, who is a leadership development author and expert. She's worked with Ken Blanchard in his company for many years, and she's written many, many wonderful books. Her latest is called Lead with Louie, which is available on Amazon now, as are all of her other titles. And we're so grateful to have you with us today, Danise.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. This is fabulous to connect like this on a daily basis. And I've been listening to and watching the webinars, and they are phenomenal. You've had some great content and some really great authors and leaders on. So thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Danise. And, you know, as we begin, since you've been watching, we like to start with sort of a centering practice around gratitude because, you know, life is crazy right now and we're anxious and we're questioning, and just coming back to gratitude has been something we found really helpful. Would you like to share a gratitude today?
Yeah, a gratitude, because I have a zillion of them.
You decide.
I am so thankful to have beautiful weather. I'm in Cincinnati, actually, Loveland, Ohio. We have beautiful weather right now. I'm thankful for hot water. I'm thankful that I'm comfortable and in my home. I'm thankful for my family, my daughter, who's been wonderful getting out to get things, and very insistent that I not get out because I'm 64. So she reminds me of that. So I'm grateful for a lot. Thank you for asking.
That's wonderful. And we've got a lot of gratitudes coming in on the panel. John, who is in Washington, PA, he's grateful for family and extra time together. Kitty is grateful that Easter is coming, regardless of what else is going on in the world. Yes, having Easter is a beautiful gift. Alexa, who's coming in from Detroit, Michigan, is grateful for the sun shining today
Mhm.
You mentioned the nice weather. Doesn't the
Mhm.
sun and the nice weather make a difference?
Makes all the difference.
Makes such a difference. Um, oh, we've got another, Erica, I believe, or Eric. I'm sorry, I can't see the full name. It's cutting off, but from North Carolina, so another Tar Heel.
Mm.
Grateful for pain because it tells me just how alive I am after building a pergola in my backyard this weekend. So, a lot of us are taking time to do those kind of projects, and you know, maybe having aches and pains as a result of it. But it's a gift to be able. Erica, thank you. It's a gift to be able to you know, enjoy um, this time and try to find the silver lining in such a difficult time. And I know your work, I think, is really something that's powerful at any time, but
Mhm.
especially now, because you talk about leadership, but
Mhm.
you also really talk about love.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the questions I'd like to ask you is, what is your initial reaction when you hear love others, especially in the context of work? How do we do something like that?
You know, it's an interesting time, and thanks again for having me on here. But, you know, I've noticed over the years, I've had the pleasure of working with Ken Blanchard, and Ken is all about love, but he's also really clear about servant leadership and what it actually looks like. So for me, in the context of love and work, I have been able to observe a lot of leaders who are very hesitant about love. So let me just share with you a story. I was introduced to a CEO, great guy, was with his executive team. And the minute I meet him, he leans back in his chair and he's like this. And he looks at me and he says, "Man, I hope you have a good lawyer." And I said, "Why? Why?" And he said, "Well, anybody who has a tagline, developing leaders to develop leaders based on the foundation of love, needs a good lawyer." And I didn't respond to that. I just continued to look at him, and we had ended up having a great conversation, because what it showed me was our misunderstanding of that word love, especially in the workplace. And so I started to really think about this. And I think the pandemic has really brought about a whole nother change in how we look at this word love.
It really has. So how has it changed it for you?
So for me, it's changed because I know that it's important to continue to build relationships, and really good, authentic relationships. And I think it's important now, we're starting to see that even though we might be in our homes with family, and somebody who said, you know, "I'm really thankful for my family," you know, we're starting to see how important our families are. But authentic relationships are really key. We hear the term relationships matter, but do we really follow through on that? Or are we just buzzing through things and buzzing through life so quickly we're not paying attention to people? We got nothing now. All we can do is pay attention to relationships. And I think that's really interesting, especially if we look at our families, if we look at employees, if we look at our teams, if we're a coach for kids, you know, I mean, all of these examples are how important relationships are. So Ken Blanchard and Colleen Barrett, who was the CEO of Southwest, wrote a book called Leadership and Love, LUV, because that's the stock exchange abbreviation for Southwest. And they did a phenomenal job on this book. It's written several years ago. But I think the companies who really get that relationships matter have learned how profitable they can be. Rather than focusing on profits and then people, they focus on people, which just goes against our very strategic business minds and our very logical business minds. But they've proven out, I mean, Southwest has been profitable for 46 years.
Yeah.
And so they must be doing something right, because they love their employees, and they truly do love their employees. And you can look up their information, read that book. You know, they will tell you story after story about how important it is to be people focused. But I think we're all hesitant to love. because I think it's important for us to understand that we're putting ourselves out there. I think you guys did a webinar last week with someone who talked about transparency and vulnerability. And those are components for us to have to share love. But love and being known by the significant people in our life is our number one human need. Number one, to be known and to be loved. And I think Brene Brown says it best. A deep sense of love and belonging is an irreducible need of all people. We are biologically, cognitively, physically, and spiritually wired to love and to be loved and to belong. When those needs are not met, we don't function as we were meant to. We break, we fall apart, we numb, we ache, we hurt others, we get sick. So I think that's a pretty good summary of our basic need. So let me look at something here.
Oh, we have a question. They asked, which Brene Brown were you quoting from? Which book?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll have to get that information for you. Let me write that down because I'll pull that up for you. That was just something I keep in my material, and I didn't. I know it just named her as a research professor, University of Houston. But I've read all of her books. You know, Daring to Be Great, Daring.
Yeah.
So I feel like I can go back and look for this. But that's a great question. So thanks for asking.
Great. And we do send a follow-up email just to remind anyone, if you're new, you get a follow-up email with links to connect with Denise, and we'll include the link around this book too.
Yeah, I'll definitely get that out to you. So it's interesting. Now, I've been doing this for about 6 years, writing about this leadership and love thing. And I can't talk about this love thing without talking about my dog. Now, everybody that I talk about my dog to thinks I'm going to talk about how the dog teaches me about unconditional love. And that's just simply not true, because I'm still waiting for the dog to unconditionally love me. The lesson that I learned from this dog very, very quickly is when I adopted him 6 years ago, he seemed fine. When I brought him home, he displayed behaviors that made me question my decision to adopt him. He was aggressive. He was whiny. He was running all over the place. He was displaying, my granddaughter corrects me all the time, he wasn't a bad dog. He was displaying bad behaviors. All right. They were very bad behaviors. I wanted to send him back. And I called the place and they were like, yeah, we don't necessarily do that. Try to work with him. So I had to make two choices. The first choice was to keep him. The second choice was to love him. And the transformation I saw from me loving an unmanageable, unlovable dog made me realize I'm not much different than that dog. And how do I expect people to love me? And what does it mean if I love other people, whether they're lovable or not? Changed my whole world. So I started to do some checking in on this, which is why I went to the Brene Brown quote. But I had lunch with my vet, who is my friend. And I said, I'm just not getting this message about love and business. I'm not getting it. And he said, that's because in English, we have one word for love, love.
Right.
But in the Greek, we have 4 words for love. And those 4 words are storge, S-T-O-R-G-E, which is affection, family affection. We have philia, which is friendship and friendship affection. We have eros, which is romantic love. And then we have agape, which is the highest form of love. And so people in business go right to eros, and that's wrong.
And it gets a lot of people in trouble.
Exactly. Exactly. But as I dug further and further into this, I started to realize there are characteristics that span all 4 words for love. And those characteristics are, and let me start with the first 2, patience and kindness. I can stop right there because I've never been a patient person. I have to intentionally choose to be patient.
Yeah.
And kindness. I've had to choose to be kind. And in this time where all of us are just struggling with this isolation and we're far away from each other, we can still choose to be patient and kind. When we're on social media, like my mom used to say, and your mom used to say, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything.
Then we might not ever post on social media, which, may be a good thing. But how do we cultivate kindness and grace and patience when we're working remotely for the first time with people? And maybe we haven't had relationships with our teammates that really are based on love. How do we start making these shifts in this time of remote working?
And that's a great question, because if you haven't been doing it before, it's going to be really tough to be that person, to be a loving person when you are only online. But because our communication is mostly through body language, facial tone of voice, as opposed to just words, then I think it's really important that we be very intentional about being kind. One of the things that I've had to learn, because I'm a very reactionary person, I used to blame it on me being Italian. I'm just reactionary. But when I started to learn how to pause, just press the pause button and think. And a good friend of mine, Lynn, has always taught me to ask really good questions. So rather than me spewing out my opinion, what somebody needs to do, pause and I ask a question. And it's amazing how it's set up things so differently. And we can do that online. I mean, we can be kind and patient and show grace and give hope and, be somebody who doesn't like hold grudges and all these characteristics. But that's a great question, Christy. And personally, I'd love to hear from people. What are some of the ways that they're struggling with showing grace and kindness and love and in the workplace, online, in their home with the people they're supposed to love?
Yeah, we talked some Friday with the guests who were here Friday about the relationships at home, and how in some ways it's like rediscovering relationships because we spend so much time with the people we work with. And now we're suddenly spending a huge amount of time with our families. But one of the things I find, I wouldn't use the word struggle, but a challenge that I will find, because I consider myself a kind person. I want to be a kind person, but I'll find that there are people that I just butt heads with, or I struggle to like.
Yes.
And how do you come, that challenging coworker who you feel like is in the way when you're doing work, or constantly questions, and you really don't like them? How do you shift? You may never like them, but how do you approach them with love? I find that one so challenging. I grapple with that.
And we are always going to have people in our lives. That's why it was so eye-opening for me with Louie, because it opened my eyes that I will always have people in my life that are unlovable, or that rub me the wrong, or that I'm unlovable too.
Yeah.
But a long time ago, I read this quote from a gentleman, Oswald Chambers. He was a theologian. He died in 1914. But he said, there is always one fact more in everyone's circumstance we know nothing of. Everybody has a story. And when I step back and I do that pause, I always think about that story that somebody has that says, there's something going on. Part of the patience part for me is, do I give people time to tell me their story? I mean, do I know that they might be struggling at home with somebody who is physically not capable of helping, or mentally not capable, and maybe there's stuff going on at home we know nothing of? And when I look at people with those kind of glasses on, everybody can be loved by me.
Yeah, that's a great and powerful message. And I agree. Sometimes I struggle in practice, work in progress, as we
Yeah,
say.
we all are.
Yeah, we all are. Joanne shared that paying attention to what scares you and noticing what shows up
Mm.
can really help with that self-awareness around love. And I think that's definitely true. I think we all, you know, not to give any faith to astrology, but, you know, they'll show you the signs that you don't get along with. And it's almost always about traits. There are certain traits that, you know, maybe hit you the wrong way. But I love that idea of being aware of them. I love your idea of knowing there's a deeper story there. I may never know it.
We may
I
never
don't
know.
have to know it,
Hmm.
but I can still show
Hmm.
that grace. I
Yeah.
think the pause is really important too. What about at home? We're at home with people who, you know, we love.
Hmm.
That's why they're our families.
Hmm.
But yet we may be really struggling right now because we're
Hmm.
spending so much time together. How
Yeah.
do we know the love is the foundation, but we're letting other things get in the way.
Absolutely. And we do. Um, and sometimes it just helps to ask a question like, how can I, how can I be kinder? I mean, especially when you're at home, how can I love you more? What, what do you need from me? I want to go back to Joanne's thought too, because about what might scare us. Sometimes when I'm around people who I don't like, it's normally because they're displaying a trait that is in me that I don't like. And it's eye-open. And so I have to step back and take a look at that. But when we're with our families, like I'll ask my grandkids, how can I show you I love you more? And they're like, oh, Nona, you love us enough. No, of course I do, because I'm your Nona. But
Yeah.
how can I show love? How can I, we can talk about the 5 love languages, from
Yeah.
Gary Chapman. That's a really, really good. And just being aware that this is how we show love. How do we show, somebody love that we're living with, and we're getting that just rub and they're making me crazy.
Yeah.
Step back and take that pause. Quickly, I watched a video one time of some people on death row. And every one of them who were there for murder said, if I would have just paused, I would not have pulled that trigger.
Wow.
So there is power in that pause. And it has to be intentional. But again, if we go to people and say, how can I help you? How can I be more loving? How can I, show that I care? Just be kind. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do is just go in your room for a minute and read a book. Just go.
I've been going on walks, but Greg, who's in our chat, was saying, tell someone your story and you'll get their attention. Help someone tell their story and you'll win their heart. So
That's
powerful.
perfect. Repeat that again, because I think that is powerful.
Tell someone your story and you'll get their attention. Help someone tell their story and you'll win their heart. So Greg, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, because that's so true. Draw it out. In coaching, we ask those questions and we draw out those things and what's inside of people. And so just asking those questions and drawing it out helps people, to understand who they are.
Yeah. And in this remote world, we can still do that.
Oh, absolutely.
We're having, video conferences, we're having video meetings one-on-one.
Yeah.
And we can still do that and hear people's stories and deepen relationships, even in this time of utter madness.
Yeah. And even going back to some of those characteristics, being about love, being patient, being kind, and being trustworthy, sharing truth, just be real. Just be real. The other part of this is, like right now I have a nice top on and I have my, my sweats on.
Yeah.
That's the real Danise,
Yeah.
And I just feel like we've gone to this place with social media where we put up our wall, like, again, my age with the Jetsons and the mask, and they took the mask off when they were done video conferencing. But just be real and just be authentic. And it doesn't mean that you spew out, hey, I just tell it like it is. Be kind when you're telling truth. Share truth and love. But there's something I want to share in regards to our 4 loves. And the New York Life Insurance Company did a commercial during Super Bowl that talked about these four loves, and the agape part, the agape was the highest form. And in the commercial, they showed how they were serving. There were caregivers and they were serving other people. And that's what the highest form is. However, in the Greek word, agape, or as C.S. Lewis says, agape, it really is the love of God for man and the love of man for God. And I think that says it all. For me, that says it's hard for me to love if I don't understand how truly loved I am. And I think that's really important for people to understand.
That's really powerful. Well, we've got 5 minutes left. The time I could talk with you all day, Danise.
Sorry.
It's gone so fast. But one final question before we let everyone know how they can connect with you, and that's it. How do we show love during this time of physical distancing? How can we do this?
This is a powerful week this week, and I think somebody was saying that about Easter. It's a powerful week, whatever your belief is. And I think it is just remembering to just take that pause. Wonder what the story is with other people and ask. Be kind. Just be kind to people. Be kind in your words and be kind as you're connecting with others via the internet, via the Zoom. Just be kind. I think people appreciate that, especially now because we're hungry for that connection. Do the best you can to connect and be kind.
I think that is really powerful, and agree, we kind and patient and share grace. We're all stressed to the gills right now, so we can, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And it only gets better if we're good to one another. Danise, it's so wonderful to talk with you. And I'd love for you to share how our audience today can connect with you. And remember, you're going to get an email with all of this too, but you can jot it down really quick if you'd like as well. But how can our attendees today connect?
So you can email me at Danise, that's DANISE, at DI-advisors. Danise, DANISE, at DI-advisors.com. You can call me. I love to talk to you. Call me at 513-477-7624. 513-477-7624. I will tell you, if I'm on the phone with someone, I will not interrupt my call with them. So, but I will call you back. But connect with me via email. Website for my kids' stuff is louisloves.me. Isn't that so appropriate? louisloves.me. Just connect with me any way you can. I'd love to hear from you.
That's wonderful, Danise. And a phone number is incredibly generous, incredibly generous. So you absolutely walk the talk.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate that. Sure. And thank you again so much for being here. And all of you who joined us today, we're so grateful to have you here. And you're getting lots of beautiful thank yous in the chat window right now.
Thank you.
And we'll make sure that you see these, Danise. And we also, if you had a question that we weren't able to address, we'll look at these afterwards and try to get you an answer in follow-up. So thanks to everyone for being here today. Again, I'll just mention Weaving Influence is doing this every weekday. We're now have extended our daily connection. It's going to go through the end of April. So please continue to tune in every weekday at noon Eastern with us. And Weaving Influence is a digital marketing agency. We work with wonderful people like Danise DiStasi.
They're
and other
great.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're great.
Other business and leadership authors and thought leaders to help them build platforms and launch books and meet all their marketing needs. So if you're in line for that kind of work, or if you know someone who is, send them our way. We'd love to work with them. And again, we're grateful for all of you being here today. So blessed to spend this time with you, Danise. And we hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And we'll be back tomorrow.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.